Hey everyone, even though the season is almost over, you said you still want to know the strongest champions. So we're going to go role by role today, check out the best, a runner-up, an underrated pick, and a few that are amazing below plat. Again, I'm going to show you a build and a rune page to start you off for every single one of these champions in the video, and all the info is from u.gg. There are a lot of other builds and rune setups that you can go for, so if you want to try a few different things, it's really simple. You're going to search up the champion that you want to look at, see the most common page or the best page right there in front of you, and then under more stats, you can actually take a look at what else works, as well as a bunch of other stuff like other runes and other items. Now, AD carry is much easier right now if you can have a strong early game. You can fight, but you can also stay relatively safe. Like, there is a lot of damage flying around in the game. Lucian, in my opinion, is by far the best at surviving in this meta, almost the most popular and the highest win rate at the same time. You are an early game machine, you're great at fighting, but it transitions into a really good mid game. You have the kiting, the dueling, the burst damage, the sustained damage, and even damage from range with your ultimate, so you don't actually have to get close. The amount that you can dash around definitely helps to keep you safe, and you don't have to have perfect positioning either, which is really good, but it's also your building health. It just makes it a lot easier. As far as countering Lucian goes, you can either try to outscale him and just avoid feeding him like with a twitch or something like that, or you pick something very strong and outmuscle him like a Draven or a Misfortune. For our runner-up, we're going to look at Sivir. She's just beast mode right now, and she's so easy to play as well. You do have some decent damage in the lane phase, but you have amazing pushing power, so you farm up a storm while the enemy AD is missing a ton under their tower. What this means is normally you have a lot more CS, you have more items, more gold, and AD carry is 10 times easier with more gold. And then you have your ultimate as well to help your team and fall back on a really good late game. So if somebody can burst you down, or they can kind of like ignore your spell shield, really, you're in a bit of trouble. So like a Draven doesn't really care about your spell shield at all. Vayne doesn't either, really. If you don't push and get like a big CS lead against Vayne, then you're probably going to have issues mid-game. The underrated one for me is going to be Twitch. He can get smashed harder than most AD carries in the lane phase, but it doesn't matter because he's like the Kassadin in a bot lane. If you get to like at least 3 items, then you stand a really solid chance to win the game. If you're behind, that just means you have to hold on in the game and farm up. If you get a few ganks and you got a few kills early though, you hit those items earlier and you destroy the game. Looking at best below plat now, Misfortune is the first one, not really a surprise. Sivir is also really good at these ranks as well, by the way, but we mentioned her before, and both because they're a pain to play against in the lane phase. Sivir is going to push you really hard, but Misfortune is just very hard to lose bot lane in general. You win your one auto trades, you burst harder, you can bounce from range, and you bring way more damage than pretty much anyone else. The other one we could look at is Jinx as well. It's actually very good early to mid game after Stormraiser, even as a crit champion, and I feel like this is why she fits so well at lower ranks. You just need one item. You get the guaranteed rocket crit, which stings like majorly, and the reset, which makes your life easier and gives you more cleanup potential to pick up maybe more kills after the first one, and it makes kiting a dream with the move speed. Moving on to our mid lane then, it feels like one of the best and most important roles in solo queue for sure at the end of Season 8 and moving into the pre-season. They can control so much of the game. Lissandra is really good at that. She is the best with Aftershock and does genuinely need a nerf in my opinion. It's very low risk but high reward to play her. With the extra armor and magic resist, you're very hard to outtrade or kill in the lane phase, and it's so easy to proc it. You have a strong lane phase, you're going to be very hard to shut down. You have good wave clear, you can push really hard, good roaming, and a really good team fight. The best bet to try and counter her is to try and outrange her really. If she gets in close, then nobody is going to be able to beat her, honestly. LeBlanc and Taliyah are kind of part of that problem as well. Because they want to get close, they want to jump in. That's why Lissandra became meta in the first place. She is so good against them. Runner-up wise, we're going to look at Kassadin. This can be summed up legit as get to level 16, your 3rd rank of your ultimate, and you're probably going to win the game. His early game is not that strong, and many people are going to smash him. Talon and Aatrox are a few that can actually bend him over so well that he doesn't recover though. His damage is eventually going to be nuts, and there's no escaping him either with late game, at least with so many jumps. But it's also that thing of if he gets a few kills early, then it's going to be even worse. So picking AD is a good way to counter Kassadin. You be aggressive early as well, fight him, punish him, and then you have to try and end the game before that level 16 and before he gets to more than 3 items. The underrated one we're going to look at is Fizz, and actually hates the other two that we've talked about already, Lissandra and Kassadin, because they can bully him so well. But Fizz is still one of the best hard carry mid laners. You don't see him very often anymore, but after all of his like mini rework and shuffling his damage around that happened to his kit recently, he has a very strong early game, but then he scales actually pretty well through the game, and he can easily one-shot even later. So looking at the best below plat now, Veigar is a bit of a surprise for me personally, but apparently he's a lot better at lower ranks now. You do have your cage to catch people who misstep, and people do misposition quite a lot. You infinitely scale, you have insane damage, and in general, lower rank games actually last a lot longer. So in a way, that part actually does make a lot of sense. Ahri is still going to be here even after our ultimate nerfs we had. She's too safe and too well-rounded, which makes her ideal for laning, especially at lower ranks. You have the kill potential if a charm lands, but you can always just ult away if you mess up or misjudge. Kind of why like I sometimes play her when I get auto-filled as an AD carry. Like I can carry myself, a charm can be really clutch late game. You have good damage, but if I don't know a matchup perfectly and I get caught my pants down, I don't have to die. I can just ult away. Jungle is also still insane, but there's two things with this. You definitely scale with how good your laners are. If you gank for monkeys, it doesn't always end very well. And early gankers are like the way to snowball the game at the moment. So the best I think is Taliyah. It's the perfect mix of ganking hard but dealing a lot of damage and carrying herself, especially after level 6. If you've blown flashes before in a gank or something, it's basically a free kill, and then you can just grab a dragon or a tower afterwards. Her mid game is so nuts right now. She's not that difficult to play really. You don't have to risk very much because she is ranged, but very high reward still. To shut her down, the best thing is to invade her early, where she is still just like a mage in the jungle with low health and no way to get away. Other than that, if you jump on top of her and engage first, it's a lot easier to play against her. She is still just a mage. So runner-up wise, we never talk about Camille jungle in these because she can be useless if you have awful laners or you don't gank enough. Camille is pretty brain dead. You E into lane, you get a stun, you nab a kill with your stupid damage, and you rinse and repeat. You can duel well, and with a lead, you're going to basically 1v9 the game, but she is definitely an early game monster, and that is why you pick her. It's not something you sit back and you farm on. You have to gank. The way to beat her is kind of that as well. Like if you can just not die early, then you should be fine. Like you know she's going to gank heavy, or you pick something just as early game and you try to counter gank. She's low health, and without her stun, she isn't really that strong. So my underrated choice is going to be Ekko, and it's actually Dark Harvest Ekko jungle. It's something that we don't really see that often, but I think it's really strong. One thing is just like Dark Harvest and Lichbane together, they work amazingly well with the burst damage it brings. Your ganks aren't going to be that bad. You have a stun, you have the mobility, your clearing is fine as well, and you still scale just like Ekko does normally. It's a lot of fun. Looking below plat, Jax is still a really good consistent jungler. Can't really go wrong with this guy, and if you have a half decent team, he is the best thing you can play. You can gank, but the longer the game goes on and the more you can farm, the more you start to take over. So if your lanes are winning anyway, it's like the dream. You can do that and you can reach late game, but if not, you can still 1v9 because you're Jax. Mossy is a lot like that as well actually, but he started to win a lot more lower down the last few patches. It seems like once he gets his rage-based second item, you become a beast. So as long as you can get to that point in the game, it's kind of like right-clicking with your ultimate on and knowing when to go in. Support is kind of hard right now, I think. Like if you smash lane with an AD carry, then it's great, but AD carry in general isn't in the best spot, so roaming is a lot stronger, I think. Thresh can do both of these really well, so he is going to be the best. He's still in the same spot after they overbuffed him. I think early game he can just kind of roll over games, especially if he can walk up and flay. Get away with that, then it's like perfect, or just fish for hooks really, and eventually one is going to land. Later on he can be just as strong, and that is why a good Thresh is actually nuts. They can win lane hard, and then they can be crazy useful all game as long as they actually know what they're doing. The best way to beat him is going to be with poke or damage, to be honest. Like Zyra is a really good example. You can root when he walks up, but even then you've got to be really careful of one hook screwing you up. Runner-up wise, we're going to look at Leona. Still really good at smashing lane, but she's also amazing at roaming, especially after level 6. Most people just use the ultimate bot lane to try and pick up a few kills, but you can practically ult from the mid lane side bush and snowball mid lane instead. She's also really good when paired with a jungler to move around and be like a goon squad basically. Like especially after those nutty W buffs, you can just dive in and she never really dies. The best way to counter a Leona though is if you pick a stronger lane that can survive her first engage, then you almost always win. She goes in, then she has nothing left, so you just pound away at her while she's running away. Like a lot of people will run backwards after that, but that's the time to actually fight when she has no cooldowns. The underrated support for me is going to actually be Zyra. We mentioned her already, has the most brutal early game right now that people have started to rush Liandry's. With her plants applying the burn, you get like max benefit out of the recent buff that we had, and she is also amazing against a lot of champions that want to run at you. Think of like an Irelia diving in or something, or Draven in a way has to run forward to actually auto attack, and these engage supports as well because you can drop her ultimate and then turn the fight. Looking below plat, we're going to start with Sona, who is the opposite and a lot like a Kassadin, which sounds very weird, right? For a Sona to be like comparable to Twitch or Kassadin, but she can give a massive boost to teamfights after level 16. The aura spam becomes so insane after the 3rd rank of your ultimate, and then you have synergy with items that you have at that point. Now, no joke really, she has similar win rates to Kassadin that late into the game. Brand is also a lot like Zyra. Liandry's buff is great for him with the burn as well on his passive, but I think he's even better at lower ranks because he's more deadly. The poke hurts a little bit more if it lands. It's a bit hard to hit, but still, and one stun can 100 to 0 an AD carry with ignite. You're basically the carry bot lane when you play Brand, which is amazing when your AD is a twat. So top lane then to round out the video. By the way, it's always last because I just don't really like playing top lane. And I've seen quite a few people say now that Ignite is just a lot better so you can win your lane harder. Now, Urgot still bullies the nuts off of anybody in the lane phase, even after the Time Warp Tonic rework. And I honestly thought that would kind of stop that, but apparently the insta healing is still great for fights. He also doesn't have to pin himself into Ignite because he can swap it with Unsealed Spellbook. So he gets that, like swaps it for kills, but then he keeps his TP for later and for laning. It's kind of funny that he can rush Righteous Glory as his second item, still do a stupid amount of damage and not die when he charges in, but that about sums it up really. And also he has the ranged Cho'Gath ultimate execute. It's really hard to talk about counters for Urgot because nothing is like majorly working, but Victor is good because he gets free Klepto proc, so he gets a lot of free gold. But for solo queue, tanks aren't bad either, or like tankier champions, maybe like a Kled or a Singed even, who can duel in but just roam and help their team. So we did kind of talk about Jax already in the jungle, but this one is a proper runner-up Jax. It's more of a selfish pick. You get 2, maybe 3 items, and you're going to be able to either split push or team fight and win the game. The thing is, he's not actually garbage early either. Like, if you outplay somebody, then you get a kick and you get your late game earlier, and you're kind of off to the races. Like, getting items earlier into the game is so deadly on a late game champion. I still think split pushing to win is an amazing thing to have in your pocket. Like, it can be really good. It can be hard sometimes with a rough team, but it's like a viable way to win no matter what the game is. Again, it's kind of hard to counter Jax, which is why a lot of people ban him, but the best way is to camp him early or beat him in the lane phase, but more importantly is what you do afterward. You just can't let him free farm, so make plays and force him to group, or if he doesn't want to group, then kill his team. Just don't get trapped into a farm fest. I know you guys think I have a hard on for Pantheon, but he is my underrated choice. Is actually really good against Jax because of the blocking and the early damage. You win lane really hard and it's not difficult to do it. I think it's also how you become like a second jungler after the lane phase where you ultimate as much as you can, and it's like you win your own lane and then you win at least another one as well. For the best below plat, first of all, we're going to look at Sion. Just way too tanky and does so much damage with this new like Titanic Sterex build. This is an inting Sion, by the way. Those items are just really good. At lower ranks, this is even harder to stop as well. He also has the engage and will last forever. So even if your team doesn't follow up straight away, if they're like a bit behind, a bit slow, you aren't going to die for a good while. Garen is also decent at higher ranks as well, but amazing lower down because you legit just have to max your Q, you run up, you hit them, you rinse and repeat, and you win your lane. You can actually carry as well, which is really good. Now again, you're tanky. You can make mistakes and you won't die, but because you're building AD now, you could flash on the enemy AD, kill them before the silence is even up. So there you go. Those are the best champions right now. Good luck on your end of season climb, and I really hope you get where you want to be. Thank you for watching the video until the very end. Thumbs up if you haven't already, and for now, I will leave you with Robots.